Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today I want to talk about comfort reads. I've been in a bit of a funk for the last 2 weeks or so, and one of the main things I like to do in order to try to make myself feel better is I will reread or re-listen to some of my favorite books. So today I want to talk about some of my favorite that I love to revisit as my favorite comfort reads. So as usual, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and let's begin. So, as I said, I've been in a bit of a funk for the last 2 weeks. I've been kind of depressed and a little bit apathetic. But when I do feel that way, I always try to revisit a book that I really enjoyed, or like a movie or something like that, that kind of, helps your mood. It kind of is, pick me up, a nice little pick me up. So, I wanted to talk about some of my favorite books to revisit today. So, the first one on the list of books that I like to reread that brings me comfort is Breathing Underwater. Now, I know that's a weird one to call a comfort read because it's actually a really heavy book with a very heavy storyline because it's all about domestic violence and abuse. So the reason why that one is a part of my comfort read list is because of the time in my life when I first read it. I was about 16. So it was about 16 years ago or so when I first read it. And that was the first book that I ever got to the end and like closed it and then immediately opened it again and started reading it again. Because it was the most truth I had ever gotten out of a book up to that point, I felt like. And it just impacted me so severely. So every now and again, I like to go back to it and just kind of remember where I was at that point and how that touched me and it kind of started my love of books to the degree that it exists now. So next up on the list is kind of a cheat because it's two books. But these are my two favorite books written by Sherilyn Kenyon, now Sherilyn McQueen. They are Styx and Acheron. These books are basically companion books because they are about twin brothers, and it is basically telling the same story from two different perspectives. So I kind of marry it into one big story. So I really enjoy Sherilyn Kenyon's books because of her in-depth world building that she does, and this story kind of culminates it, or not really culminates it, but it's a linchpin point. The story of Acheron, while it is just kind of book 27 in her series, it's also kind of giving you the closest thing to a direct origin for all the magic and all the way everything in her universe works. And the Styx part of it is very much this hard character, it's a character story, but it's commenting on the Asher. It's hard to explain. I'll talk about it in depth in my reviews for it. But in any case, those books kind of hit me in a way that it's like when it's kind of like when I'm going through something that has to do with interaction with people and like perspective and knowing their side versus my side versus the truth somewhere in between. I like to kind of revisit those if, it causes me to be in the mood for any long period of time. But like I like to revisit those because it always reminds me that like there is your story, the other person's story, and the truth, which is somewhere in between. Because perspective, even if you are trying to express yourself with like objective recall and be as forthright and honest as possible, your perspective alone will skew events. So this idea of the truth being somewhere in the middle, and it's basically an unvarnished, untouched kind of truth thing that can only be gotten at by understanding both sides properly and seeing the entire thing in third perspective, that kind of like, yeah, it sends my mind into a lot of different directions, and that's why I really like these books. So next up on the list, one that I really like to revisit is a all ages book. It is the second book in the Pendragon series called The Lost City of Far. It's called. So the Pendragon series is basically a all ages kind of sci-fi series where the main character, what is his name? Bobby Pendragon. That's the name. When Bobby basically planet hops, he goes to a bunch of different planets for this. It's a 10-book series and it has an overarching story, but every story he goes to a different planet. In the second one, he goes to a planet called Far, and the entire planet is water. It's like that planet in one of the Star Wars prequels where they made the clones. I can't remember the name of the planet, but I always thought that was like the coolest thing. The entire planet was water, and they're basically like in similar to Mortal Engines, how they had those roaming cities or whatever. This world has boat cities. Like the entire city is on a gigantic barge, and it just has this cool, fun, laid back kind of feel to it. It very much feels like a beach adventure and like an underwater kind of thing. I really like that stuff, and it just kind of, it's like when you get sick of being in, I live in the Midwest, so it's like you get sick of not being near an ocean and stuff like that, and like just want to, you know, kind of be out there. It's one of those things that kind of put me back in that mood where I kind of feel more connected to the water and stuff. So I really like that. It kind of brings that out in me. So that's why that one is particularly comforting for me, even though it is all ages and it has all the issues that go along with that. But it definitely is one of the more comforting books that I like to reread and revisit. So number 4, actually these last 3, number 3, 4, and 5 are all kind of cheats. So number 4 is 2 books as well, sort of. It's the same author. So Drew Hayes, I really enjoy his superhero genre stuff that he does. So my 2 favorite for number 4 would have to be Forging Hephaestus and Superpowers. So with Superpowers, though, that's a series of 4 books, 4.5 if you count the spinoff. But for that one, I really like to re-listen to book 2 and book 4. Those mostly because it's pure action. It's, well, not really pure. It has the most action. Those 2 books have the most interesting action and power use and dynamics and like characterization between these people. So when I get into a bit of a funk about like feeling more or less powerless and like not being able to do what I want to do and having the control over the things I really want or feel like I need to have control over, I really enjoy things like Forging Hephaestus or Superpowers, where these people with immense power still deal with red tape, but they also seem to just get through it like some way or another. And it always kind of works out because, I mean, it's the nature of the storytelling, but it's like, these especially Superpowers, probably more than Forging Hephaestus, it shows this great emphasis on effort and attempt and drive, like the struggle of trying to do the effort of pushing through. It's so much of that I think that kind of comforts me in the way of like, yes, I know I gotta keep going, I gotta keep drudging through, I gotta keep kind of pushing through. So it builds that back up in me, and it kind of lessens the apathy that kind of settles in my head a little bit. So that plus Fortune Hephaestus, which is more the, I don't want to be stuck in this rigid matrix-like computer system, basically, that we all live in, being society, and you just want to be your own person and live by your own rules and do your own stuff, which is why I kind of really like villain stories a lot, too, because they are the personification of, like, self-reliance, but they don't necessarily have to be evil or doing evil things. They just don't want to be stuck in the trappings of this crap that we live in. So yeah. So last but not least, is probably fairly predictable, but my most comforting reread, the book or books that I revisit most often, more than any other books, is Stormlight Archive. It's probably very obvious when you think about it, but so while I love to revisit all of Stormlight, I really, really love Words of Radiance. Words of Radiance still, even after Rhythm of War has come out, it's definitely still remains my favorite of the entire series so far. The dynamics between the characters, the events, and the final battle in the rain at the end, just everything about that story is so amazing and so comforting. But I also really like Oathbringer because of everything that happens in Dalinar's arc. It's similar reasons to why I like the story of like the struggle and pushing through and all that stuff. It's like this forcing of being better, this attempt at being better, this always striving to get better, this next step. Like that kind of stuff is one of the things that made me love Stormlight Archive, and it's one of the things that definitely makes me revisit it all the time. Sadly, Rhythm of War is not a part of that group when I do a Stormlight reread. It's often really just Words of Radiance and Oathbringer because of all the character interactions in Words of Radiance. And like I said, the battle in the rain at the end is just so epic and so amazing. It's just like something I love to revisit. The arena fight and stuff, I just really love that a lot. Like, just Stormlight is amazing, and it's just always, and it always makes me feel better to revisit the world of Roshar and revisit these characters. So that's one of my absolute favorite ones to reread, but right now I am currently re-listening to Superpowers Year 4. So I'm going to go ahead and end this video here. I don't want it to go on too long. It's already like over 10 minutes or something. But I want to ask you all, what are some of your favorite rereads? What books do you like to revisit to make yourself feel better? Or what book is just like a, you know, good comfort kind of thing? What book to you feels like a warm blanket in the winter or something? Let me know about that in the comments down below. So remember to hit the like button on this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And I will talk to y'all next time. Peace.